Genetics is often described as a code, a blueprint, or a fixed set of instructions. But what you are about to hear reveals something far quieter and far more profound. Genes are not commands, they are conversations. In this journey, you will explore how genetic information is read moment by moment inside the body, how environment and experience gently influence which instructions are expressed, and how inheritance carries not just traits, but rhythms shaped over thousands of generations. You will move through the idea of epigenetics, where life speaks back to DNA, altering expression without changing the code itself, and into the deeper concept of genetic memory, where the body remembers conditions it never personally lived through. You will hear how variation is not error but resilience, how repair and replication work most quietly during rest, and why night is when the genome does some of its most important work. And finally, you will arrive at a different understanding altogether, that genetics is not a static script, but a living process, responsive, adaptive, and continuously integrating the past with the present. Nothing here asks you to analyze or decide. It only invites you to listen, as the body's deepest instructions reveal themselves slowly, naturally, and without effort, allowing understanding to settle even as awareness begins to rest. Genes are often spoken of as fate, as if the body were simply executing a fixed script written long before birth. But in reality, genes function more like possibilities waiting to be interpreted. Within every cell, genetic material exists not as a rigid command, but as a library of instructions that can be read in many different ways depending on context. The body does not express all genetic information at once, nor does it treat every instruction as equally important at every moment. Instead, genes remain mostly quiet, waiting for signals that indicate when, where, and how they should be used. This means that genetics is not a constant force acting upon the body, but a responsive system that adapts continuously. Destiny is not encoded in single outcomes, but distributed across countless potential expressions. The genome does not decide, it responds. At the cellular level, genes are activated only when conditions support their expression. Chemical signals, environmental inputs, and internal states all contribute to whether a genetic instruction remains silent or becomes active. A gene related to stress response, for example, does not operate constantly. It activates when the body perceives threat or instability. In calm conditions, that same gene may remain completely inactive, despite being present. This selective reading of genetic material allows the body to conserve energy and maintain balance. Genes do not push themselves into action, they wait to be invited. The body, not the gene, decides when expression is necessary. This responsive nature of genetics is what allows organisms to survive across changing environments. If genes were rigid commands, adaptation would be impossible. Instead, genetic systems evolved to remain flexible, allowing the same DNA sequence to produce different outcomes under different conditions. This flexibility is not random, it is highly regulated and deeply intelligent. The body uses feedback from its surroundings to choose which instructions to follow and which to ignore. Genetics, in this sense, acts as a dialogue between the organism and its environment. Expression becomes a conversation rather than an order. Because of this, the idea of genetic destiny often oversimplifies how biology actually functions. Having a gene associated with a trait or condition does not guarantee its expression. Many genes require specific combinations of signals to become active, and without those signals, they remain dormant. Lifestyle, rhythm, stress, nourishment, and rest all influence this signaling environment. The body continuously evaluates whether expressing a certain gene will support stability or disrupt it. Genetics provides options, not inevitabilities. The body chooses among them quietly, moment by moment. This distinction is important because it shifts the role of genetics from controller to collaborator. Rather than dictating outcomes, genes offer resources the body can draw upon when needed. Some instructions support growth, others repair, others adaptation to stress. The body does not activate all of them at once, because doing so would create chaos. Instead, genetic expression is carefully coordinated, ensuring coherence across systems. Destiny implies a single path. Genetics offers many paths, most of which are never taken. The genome is generous with possibility, not strict with outcome. Over time, repeated conditions influence which genetic pathways are used more often. When the body encounters similar environments repeatedly, it becomes more efficient at expressing the instructions that fit those conditions. This efficiency can look like permanence, but it remains reversible. Change the conditions, and the pattern of expression can shift again. Genetics remembers patterns, not decisions. It adapts to what happens most often. Destiny is fixed. Genetic expression is dynamic. As you listen now, the body is not doing anything dramatic with its genetic information. Most genes remain quiet, conserving energy and maintaining stability. This quiet is not inactivity. It is readiness without urgency. The genome is always present, always capable, but rarely loud. Understanding genetics in this way allows the mind to relax its grip on prediction and control. Nothing in the body is being forced into a future. Instructions remain available, waiting patiently as the system settles into rest and prepares for the deeper processes that unfold naturally in calm and sleep. Genetic information does not act on its own. It must first be read, interpreted, and translated by the body before it can have any effect. Inside every cell, DNA remains tightly organized and mostly inactive, protected and silent until the right conditions arise. Specialized molecular systems decide which small segments of this vast code will be accessed at any given time. This process is selective and economical, ensuring that only what is necessary is expressed. The body does not read the genome like a book from beginning to end. It opens only the pages it needs. Most genetic information remains untouched, waiting patiently. Expression is therefore not constant activity, but careful choice. The act of reading genetic information depends heavily on signals that reflect the body's current state. Hormones, nutrients, stress markers, and circadian cues all influence which genes become readable. These signals act like context markers, telling the cell what kind of environment it is operating within. A gene involved in repair may be prioritized during rest, while a gene related to alertness may be activated during challenge. The genome responds to these internal messages without awareness or intention. Reading is not driven by thought, but by chemistry. The body translates experience into molecular instruction. This translation happens through a series of controlled steps that ensure precision rather than speed. DNA is first transcribed into intermediary molecules, which are then used to build proteins that carry out specific functions. Each step includes checkpoints that allow the cell to pause, adjust, or stop the process if conditions change. This layered structure prevents overreaction and protects the system from unnecessary activity. Genetic reading is therefore conservative by design. The body values stability more than expression. Genes are activated only when their output clearly supports balance. Importantly, the same genetic instruction can be read differently depending on timing and location. A gene expressed in one tissue may serve a completely different role in another. Even within the same cell, expression can vary across different moments of the day. This flexibility allows the body to reuse the same genetic material for multiple purposes. DNA does not specify outcomes in isolation. Outcomes emerge from how, when, and where information is read. The genome offers versatility rather than specificity. Meaning arises through context. Because reading genetic information requires energy, the body prioritizes efficiency. During periods of rest, when external demands are low, resources can be redirected toward maintenance and repair. This is when many restorative genetic processes become more active. In contrast, during stress or activity, the body limits genetic expression to what is immediately necessary. This shifting priority helps preserve energy and prevent overload. Genetics adapts to rhythm, responding differently to day and night, effort and stillness. The genome follows the body's lead. This responsiveness means that genetic activity is closely tied to the overall state of the system. When the body feels safe and supported, genetic reading becomes more balanced and coordinated. When the body perceives threat or instability, expression narrows, focusing on survival rather than growth. These shifts are not good or bad. They are appropriate responses to different conditions. Genetics does not seek comfort or performance. It seeks coherence. Expression aligns with what the body needs most in that moment. As you listen now, the body is in a state that favors minimal demand and gentle regulation. Genetic reading slows to its most essential processes, supporting stability rather than change. Many genes remain inactive, conserving energy and preserving readiness. This quiet state is not neglect, it is intelligent restraint. The genome continues its work without urgency, aligned with calm and rest. In this stillness, genetic activity becomes precise and subtle, laying the groundwork for deeper repair and integration as the system moves naturally towards sleep. Genes do not decide when to speak. They wait for signals that tell them whether expression is appropriate. These signals arise continuously from within the body and from its interaction with the environment. Chemical messengers carry information about stress levels, nutrient availability, temperature, circadian timing, and emotional state. Together, these signals create a constantly updating context that the genome responds to. A gene that supports growth may remain silent during uncertainty, while a gene that supports repair may activate during rest. The genome listens more than it speaks. Expression is always conditional. These signals do not arrive as single instructions, but as patterns that must align before action is taken. The body evaluates combinations rather than isolated messages, ensuring that expression reflects overall conditions rather than momentary fluctuations. This prevents overreaction and protects the system from instability. A brief change rarely triggers major genetic shifts. Sustained patterns are required. The genome is cautious, preferring reliability over immediacy. It waits until signals agree. Only then does expression begin. Internal states play a particularly strong role in this signaling process. Hormonal balance, nervous system tone, and metabolic status all influence how genetic information is accessed. When the body is calm, signals favor maintenance, repair, and regulation. When the body is challenged, signals shift toward mobilization and defense. These changes do not reflect intention or emotion in a psychological sense. They reflect physiological readiness. The genome responds faithfully to what the body communicates chemically. Expression follows state, not thought. External conditions also contribute, but only as they are interpreted internally. Light, sound, temperature, and social presence influence genetic expression indirectly by altering internal chemistry. The genome does not perceive the world directly. It perceives the body's response to the world. This distinction matters because it places experience at the center of genetic regulation. Two identical environments can produce different genetic outcomes depending on how the body responds. Genetics responds to meaning translated into chemistry. Expression reflects interpretation rather than exposure. Because signaling is continuous, genetic expression is never fixed for long. Genes may turn on briefly, then return to silence as conditions change. This dynamic pattern allows the body to remain flexible without losing stability. Expression adapts without committing permanently. The genome behaves less like a switch and more like a dimmer, adjusting intensity gradually. This subtlety allows fine regulation rather than extreme shifts. Genetics operates quietly, always adjusting, rarely dramatic. Over time, repeated signaling patterns can make certain expressions more likely. When the same conditions occur frequently, the genome becomes efficient at responding to them. This efficiency can feel like permanence, but it remains dependent on ongoing signals. Change the signals, and expression can change again. The genome does not lock in decisions lightly. It remains responsive throughout life. Adaptation is always provisional. As you listen now, the body is sending signals of steadiness and low demand. There is no urgency, no requirement for rapid adaptation. Genetic expression settles into its most conservative mode, prioritizing coherence and balance. Many genes remain silent, conserving potential rather than spending it. This silence is not inactivity, it is readiness held in reserve. In this calm state, the genome aligns itself with rest, supporting the deeper processes that unfold naturally as awareness softens and the body prepares for sleep. Most genes spend the majority of their existence in silence, not because they are unimportant, but because restraint is one of the genome's most intelligent strategies. The body does not benefit from constant expression. It benefits from precision. Silence allows potential to be preserved rather than exhausted. A gene that is not expressed remains available, adaptable, and ready to respond when conditions truly require it. This quiet state is not dormancy in the sense of neglect, but intentional withholding. The genome understands that activity has a cost. Restraint protects long-term stability. This genetic silence also prevents interference between systems that must remain coordinated. If too many instructions were active at once, coherence would collapse. the body would struggle to prioritize repair, growth, defense, and regulation simultaneously. By keeping most genes silent, the genome reduces internal competition. Only the most relevant instructions are allowed to speak at any given time. This selectivity maintains harmony across cellular processes. Silence is therefore not absence, but order. The genome preserves balance by choosing not to act. Quiet genes also allow the body to remain sensitive rather than saturated. When expression is limited, signals retain meaning. Small changes in environment or state can be detected because the system is not overwhelmed. This sensitivity is essential for adaptation, allowing the body to respond accurately rather than reflexively. Constant expression would dull responsiveness. Silence sharpens perception. The genome listens carefully by staying quiet. Awareness at the molecular level depends on restraint. This principle mirrors how the nervous system functions during rest. Just as the brain reduces activity to allow integration and recovery, the genome limits expression to support coherence. During calm states, genetic silence increases, conserving energy and stabilizing internal conditions. The body does not need to change itself when nothing is wrong. Silence communicates sufficiency. The genome reflects this by maintaining readiness without movement. Stillness becomes functional rather than passive. Importantly, genetic silence is reversible at all times. No gene is permanently turned off in healthy systems. It is simply inactive until conditions shift. This reversibility allows the body to adapt across different phases of life. What remains silent now may become essential later. The genome does not discard possibilities, it holds them quietly, waiting. This patience allows the body to navigate change without losing capacity. Silence preserves future options. Over long periods, the pattern of silence itself becomes meaningful. Genes that remain quiet across many conditions represent deep stability. They are not needed often, but when they are, their activation carries weight. This layered structure of frequent and rare expression creates resilience. The body does not rely on a single pathway. It keeps alternatives in reserve. Genetic silence supports robustness by preventing overcommitment. As you listen now, the body favors this state of quiet genetic balance. There is no pressure to adapt, no demand to perform. Most genes remain silent, conserving energy and maintaining coherence. This silence aligns naturally with rest and sleep, when repair and integration take precedence over change. The genome continues its work without urgency, holding possibility gently in reserve. In this restrained state, the body remains stable, supported, and ready, allowing deeper rest to unfold naturally as awareness softens. Epigenetics begins with a quiet but powerful realization. The genome does not exist in isolation from experience. While the sequence of DNA remains stable, the way it is used shifts continuously in response to the body's lived conditions. Chemical markers attach to DNA and its surrounding structures, subtly altering accessibility without changing the underlying code. These markers act like notes written in the margins of a book, guiding which passages are read and which remain closed. The genome remains intact, yet its expression adapts. Experience leaves traces not by rewriting instructions, but by shaping how they are accessed. Epigenetics is the language through which life speaks back to genes. These epigenetic signals arise from ordinary, ongoing states rather than dramatic events alone. Patterns of stress, nourishment, rest, and rhythm all contribute to how genetic information is regulated. The body does not need extreme conditions to influence expression. Consistency is enough. When certain conditions persist, the genome adjusts its priorities accordingly. This adjustment is neither moral nor intentional. It is adaptive. The body learns what kind of environment it inhabits and aligns genetic expression to match it. Epigenetics reflects accommodation rather than decision. Importantly, epigenetic changes are selective and reversible. They do not lock the genome into a single pattern permanently. When conditions change, the markers can fade, allowing previous patterns of expression to return. This flexibility protects the body from becoming trapped by past environments. The genome remembers, but it does not cling. Epigenetics allows memory without permanence. Adaptation remains open-ended, preserving responsiveness across time. This process explains how identical genetic sequences can lead to different outcomes across individuals, or even within the same individual at different stages of life. Twins with the same DNA may diverge in expression as their experiences differ. The genome responds not to identity, but to context. Epigenetics translates lived conditions into molecular regulation. Genes become participants in a larger system rather than isolated determinants. Biology reflects experience without being ruled by it. At a cellular level, epigenetic regulation helps maintain efficiency and coherence. The body does not express all possible adaptations at once. It selects those most relevant to current conditions. This selection reduces internal conflict and conserves energy. When conditions are calm, epigenetic signals favor stability and repair. When conditions are challenging, they favor readiness and protection. The genome shifts tone rather than rewriting content. Expression follows environment gently, without force. Rest plays a crucial role in this process. During periods of low demand, epigenetic markers associated with repair and regulation become more prominent. The body uses quiet states to recalibrate which genetic pathways are emphasized. Sleep and calm provide the time and stability needed for these adjustments to occur without urgency. Epigenetics does not rush. It updates slowly, integrating information gathered across many moments. Rest allows the genome to listen more clearly. As you listen now, the body is in a state that supports this gentle epigenetic recalibration. Signals of steadiness, safety, and low demand circulate quietly. The genome responds by softening expression rather than intensifying it. No changes need to be noticed for them to occur. Epigenetic markers adjust subtly, aligning genetic activity with rest and coherence. In this calm environment, the body continues its quiet dialogue with its own biology, preparing the ground for deeper integration as awareness gradually settles and sleep approaches. The environment does not act upon genes as a force. It participates with them as a quiet partner in expression. Every sound, rhythm, temperature shift, and social signal is translated by the body into internal chemistry, and this chemistry becomes the language the genome understands. Genes do not sense the world directly. They sense the body's interpretation of it. This means that environment is never external to genetics, but always mediated through experience. The genome responds to patterns of exposure rather than isolated events. Over time, these patterns shape which instructions feel relevant. The environment becomes part of the genetic conversation without ever touching DNA itself. This partnership operates continuously, even when nothing noticeable seems to be happening. Ordinary conditions, daily light cycles, consistent routines, familiar spaces send steady signals that inform genetic regulation. When the environment remains predictable, epigenetic systems favor stability and maintenance. When the environment becomes unpredictable, expression shifts toward flexibility and defense. These changes are subtle and gradual, ensuring that adaptation does not disrupt coherence. The body does not react impulsively at the genetic level. It waits for confirmation that a pattern will persist before adjusting expression. The environment influences genetics through patience rather than pressure. Importantly, the body distinguishes between environments that require response and those that allow rest. A demanding environment increases the relevance of genes involved in alertness and mobilization. A supportive environment allows genes associated with repair, regulation, and balance to take precedence. This distinction is not conscious, it is chemical. The genome does not judge environments as good or bad. It evaluates whether they require action or allow stillness. Expression follows this evaluation faithfully. Genetics aligns with what the body needs to remain coherent within its surroundings. Because environment shapes expression indirectly, small changes sustained over time can have meaningful effects. The genome does not require dramatic intervention to adjust its priorities. Repeated calm, repeated safety, and repeated regularity all contribute to a genetic environment that favors balance. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. The body learns what kind of world it lives in by what happens most often. Genes respond to what is familiar rather than what is exceptional. Adaptation reflects frequency. This responsiveness also protects the body from overfitting to temporary conditions. Short-lived disruptions rarely alter genetic expression significantly. The genome waits to see whether change is real before responding. This delay prevents instability and preserves long-term balance. Environment influences genetics only when it proves itself reliable. The body trusts patterns, not moments. Epigenetic systems act as filters, allowing only sustained signals to pass through. This filtering ensures that expression remains proportional. Restful environments play a special role in this process. When external demands decrease, internal signals shift toward conservation and integration. The genome interprets this as an opportunity to prioritize coherence over adaptation. Genetic expression becomes quieter, more focused on maintaining integrity than responding to change. The body does not need to prepare for action when nothing is required. Environment communicates permission to pause. Genetics listens by softening its output. As you listen now, the environment you are in, steady, predictable, and non-demanding, is being translated into gentle internal signals. The genome receives these signals without urgency. Expression aligns with calm, favoring balance rather than adjustment. Nothing needs to change for this alignment to occur. The environment continues its silent partnership with your biology, supporting the quiet genetic processes that unfold naturally during rest. In this cooperative stillness, the body settles deeper, allowing awareness to soften as sleep approaches without effort. Epigenetic memory forms when the body encounters similar conditions repeatedly and begins to adjust genetic expression as a long-term strategy rather than a temporary response. These adjustments do not alter DNA itself. They influence how accessible certain instructions remain over extended periods. The genome records patterns of exposure, not isolated experiences, allowing the body to anticipate what is likely to come next. This anticipation is quiet and non-conscious, expressed through subtle shifts in regulation rather than overt change. Epigenetic memory helps the body remain efficient by reducing the need to re-evaluate familiar conditions constantly. Adaptation becomes smoother because it is informed by experience accumulated over time. The genome remembers without becoming rigid. This memory is distributed rather than centralized, written across many cells and systems rather than stored in a single place. Each tissue records what it encounters most often, shaping local expression patterns accordingly. Muscles, immune cells, and neural tissue may each carry distinct epigenetic signatures reflecting their unique histories. These signatures do not dictate outcomes, they bias probabilities. The body becomes slightly more prepared for what has happened before. This preparation is not prediction in a cognitive sense. It is readiness embedded in regulation. Memory at the genetic level is practical, not narrative. Because epigenetic memory develops gradually, it is inherently conservative. The body does not commit to long-term changes based on brief or extreme events. It waits for confirmation through repetition. This waiting protects against over-adaptation and preserves flexibility. When conditions change again, epigenetic marks can be revised or removed, allowing expression to shift. Memory is therefore conditional, not permanent. The genome remains open to updating its assumptions. Adaptation stays reversible. Long-term epigenetic patterns often reflect rhythms rather than specific outcomes. Cycles of activity and rest, exposure and recovery shape how expression is prioritized. When rhythms are stable, epigenetic regulation supports coherence and balance. When rhythms are disrupted, expression may favor adaptability and vigilance. The genome responds to tempo as much as to content. How often something happens matters more than what happens. Memory forms around cadence. This layered memory allows the body to integrate past experience without being dominated by it. Genetic expression becomes informed by history while remaining responsive to the present. The body does not relive the past, it uses it to refine regulation. Epigenetic memory is subtle guidance, not instruction. It suggests rather than commands. This distinction prevents the system from becoming trapped by previous conditions. History influences, but does not imprison. Rest plays a central role in stabilizing and revising epigenetic memory. During calm periods, the body has the opportunity to reassess which patterns are still relevant. Signals of safety and low demand allow regulatory systems to soften previously heightened expression. Memory is reviewed quietly, not erased abruptly. Sleep and rest provide the conditions for this review to occur without urgency. The genome recalibrates when the body is still enough to listen. As you listen now, the body is in a state that supports this gentle recalibration of epigenetic memory. Signals of steadiness and continuity circulate without interruption. The genome interprets this as evidence that calm is reliable. Expression shifts subtly toward balance, and long-term patterns adjust without force. Nothing needs to be noticed or changed. Epigenetic memory updates itself quietly, aligning the body with rest and coherence as awareness continues to soften and the system prepares naturally for sleep. One of the most important qualities of epigenetic regulation is that it is designed to remain reversible, allowing the body to adapt without becoming trapped by past conditions. The genome does not assume that the future will always resemble the past, even when patterns have been consistent for long periods. Instead, it maintains a readiness to change expression when new signals become reliable. This reversibility protects the body from rigidity, ensuring that adaptation does not become limitation. Genetic expression remains provisional, always open to revision. The body avoids final decisions at the molecular level. Biology prefers flexibility over certainty. This reversibility operates through mechanisms that allow epigenetic markers to fade when they are no longer reinforced. When conditions that once demanded heightened vigilance or adaptation subside, the signals supporting those expression patterns weaken. Over time, the genome reduces emphasis on those pathways, allowing others to re-emerge. This process does not require conscious effort or intervention. It unfolds automatically as signaling environments change. The body releases what is no longer needed by simply no longer supporting it. Letting go at the genetic level is passive, not active. Importantly, reversibility does not mean instability. The genome does not oscillate wildly in response to every minor fluctuation. It waits for sustained evidence before altering expression. This balance between openness and caution ensures coherence. The body changes when change is reliable, not when it is merely possible. Reversibility is therefore structured and patient. It allows adaptation without chaos. Genetics remains responsive without becoming reactive. This capacity to revise expression throughout life is what allows recovery, resilience, and renewal. Even patterns established early can soften when conditions improve. The body does not permanently encode hardship as destiny. Instead, it carries experience lightly, ready to update its assumptions. Genetic expression reflects the present more than the past when conditions allow. This flexibility is not unlimited, but it is significant. The genome remains capable of change long after development is complete. Rest and stability are essential for this revision to occur. When the body remains in a state of constant demand, epigenetic patterns tend to persist out of necessity. When demand decreases, the genome gains space to reconsider priorities. Calm allows expression to relax. Sleep provides uninterrupted time for these adjustments to take place quietly. The body does not revise itself under pressure. It revises itself in safety. Reversibility depends on stillness. This means that periods of rest are not merely recovery from activity, but opportunities for genetic recalibration. The genome uses these periods to reassess which expressions are still relevant. Signals of safety inform the system that heightened readiness may no longer be required. Expression begins to soften without conflict. Nothing dramatic happens. Change accumulates gently. Reversibility unfolds slowly, protecting continuity while allowing renewal. As you listen now, the body is immersed in signals that support this gentle reversibility. There is no urgency, no demand to maintain a particular state. The genome responds by loosening its grip on patterns that are no longer necessary. Expression aligns with calm rather than preparation. Nothing needs to be directed or controlled. Genetic regulation continues its quiet adjustment, preserving flexibility and coherence. As awareness softens further and the system moves naturally toward deeper rest and sleep. Genetic inheritance is often described in terms of traits, but beneath visible characteristics lies something far more subtle: rhythm. The body does not inherit only structures and capacities. It inherits timing, pace, and tendencies shaped over countless generations. These inherited rhythms influence how quickly systems respond, how long they remain active, and how easily they return to rest. They are not instructions for specific actions, but patterns of timing embedded in regulation. The genome carries a sense of when to activate and when to remain quiet. This timing is rarely conscious, yet it shapes the entire flow of physiology. Inheritance is therefore not just about what happens, but about when and how it happens. These biological rhythms are woven into processes such as metabolism, hormone release, immune response, and sleep-wake cycles. Some bodies naturally move quickly between states, while others transition more slowly and deliberately. These differences are not flaws or advantages, they are variations in inherited tempo. The genome encodes tendencies towards certain rhythms based on what supported survival and stability in prior environments. Over generations, timing that proved effective was preserved. This preservation does not force repetition. It offers a starting pattern. The body adapts, but it begins from an inherited cadence. Circadian rhythms provide one of the clearest examples of this inheritance. While light and environment shape daily cycles, the sensitivity to those cues is genetically influenced. Some systems respond strongly to subtle changes, while others require more pronounced signals. This sensitivity reflects ancestral environments where timing mattered deeply for survival. The genome retains this sensitivity as a form of preparedness. Biological timing is therefore not arbitrary. It is historical. The body carries echoes of past conditions in how it measures time internally. Inherited rhythms also influence how the body handles stress and recovery. Some systems mobilize quickly and recover slowly, while others activate gradually and settle rapidly. These patterns are not learned in a single lifetime. They are refined across many. Genetics provides a baseline rhythm that experience can adjust but not erase entirely. The body negotiates between inherited timing and current conditions continuously. This negotiation allows both stability and flexibility. Rhythm becomes a meeting point between past and present. Importantly, inherited timing does not dictate outcomes, it shapes tendencies. A body with a certain rhythm is not locked into a particular response, but it may find some patterns easier than others. Awareness of this can reduce the impulse to force change where adjustment is more natural. Genetics does not resist change, it prefers alignment. When actions and environments respect inherited timing, regulation becomes smoother. The body functions best when it moves in harmony with its own cadence. Rest plays a crucial role in honoring these rhythms. During rest, the body returns to its baseline timing without interference. This allows inherited patterns to express themselves clearly, free from external pressure. Sleep, in particular, provides uninterrupted time for rhythms to synchronize across systems. The genome uses this time to reinforce coherence. Timing is recalibrated quietly, without instruction. Rest reveals the body's natural pace. As you listen now, the body is settling into its own inherited rhythm. There is no need to match an external tempo or maintain a particular pace. Genetic timing reasserts itself gently when demand is removed. Systems begin to align with their natural cadence. slowing or steadying as needed. This alignment supports deeper rest without effort. In honoring inherited rhythm, the body moves naturally toward balance, allowing awareness to soften and sleep to approach in its own time. Genetic timing does not reset with each new generation. It carries momentum forward, shaped by conditions that repeated themselves long enough to become reliable. The genome inherits not only sequences, but expectations about when certain responses are likely to be useful. These expectations are subtle, expressed as tendencies rather than instructions. Over generations, patterns of scarcity or abundance, threat or stability, activity or rest leave an imprint on how timing is regulated. The body arrives already prepared to interpret the world through these inherited rhythms. This preparation is not prediction, it is orientation. Genetic timing offers a starting point for adaptation rather than a final rule. Across generations, timing patterns are refined through survival rather than intention. Rhythms that allowed systems to mobilize at the right moment and recover efficiently were preserved because they supported continuity. Those that wasted energy or delayed recovery faded over time. This refinement did not select specific behaviors, it selected pacing, how long to stay alert, how quickly to rest, and how deeply to recover all became part of inherited regulation. The genome remembers tempo because tempo determines sustainability. Timing becomes a form of wisdom carried forward silently. These inherited rhythms influence how the body perceives urgency. Some systems are primed to respond quickly to subtle signals, while others wait for stronger confirmation. Neither approach is inherently superior. Each reflects environments where different strategies were adaptive. The genome does not evaluate current conditions independently of this history. It blends inherited timing with present signals to decide how strongly and how long to respond. This blending allows continuity across generations without preventing adaptation. Timing becomes flexible within a familiar range. Importantly, inherited genetic timing does not operate in isolation from lived experience. It sets a baseline that experience can modify but not completely override. When current conditions differ significantly from ancestral ones, the body may initially respond using inherited rhythms, then gradually adjust through epigenetic regulation. This adjustment takes time, because timing itself must be proven reliable before it is revised. The body prefers to err on the side of familiarity until new patterns establish themselves. Genetic timing is cautious because it protects long-term stability. This interplay between inherited rhythm and present context explains why some changes feel easier than others. Shifting habits that align with inherited timing often feels natural, while opposing it can feel effortful. Genetics does not prevent change, but it influences the cost of change. When adjustments respect the body's internal tempo, regulation becomes smoother. The genome supports transitions that unfold at a pace it recognizes. Timing is not a barrier, it is a guide. Sleep is one of the primary contexts where inherited timing expresses itself most clearly. During sleep, external demands recede, allowing internal rhythms to surface without interference. The genome uses this time to synchronize systems according to their natural cadence. Recovery follows inherited patterns of depth and duration. Some systems restore quickly, others more slowly, but all move toward coherence. Sleep honors timing by allowing each system to work at its own pace. As you listen now, the body is returning to this generational timing without pressure. There is no demand to accelerate or delay. Genetic rhythms unfold naturally when the environment allows stillness. Systems begin to align with the pacing they carry from deep biological history. This alignment does not require awareness or control. Timing reasserts itself quietly, supporting a smooth descent into rest as awareness softens and the body prepares naturally for sleep. Genetic inheritance carries memory without narrative, storing patterns of response without images, stories, or conscious recall. The body does not remember in the way the mind does. It remembers through regulation, through tendencies embedded in how systems activate and settle. These memories are not accessed deliberately, they are expressed automatically as timing, sensitivity, and threshold. The genome holds traces of what was repeatedly encountered and survived, translating those traces into present-day readiness. This kind of memory does not intrude into awareness, yet it shapes how experience is met. The body remembers without needing to know what it remembers. Memory lives in rhythm rather than in recollection. This inherited memory influences how the body reacts to novelty and familiarity. Situations that resemble past conditions may feel easier to navigate, even if they are new to conscious experience. Conversely, conditions that diverge sharply from inherited patterns may feel subtly unfamiliar or demanding. The genome does not label these experiences, it adjusts internal tone in response. This adjustment happens before thought, shaping perception and reaction quietly. The body is guided by a sense of recognition that does not depend on memory as we usually understand it. Genetics provides a background familiarity that precedes awareness. Because this memory is implicit, it is often mistaken for instinct or temperament. Yet it is more precise than either, reflecting specific patterns of regulation refined over time. The body does not simply react, it modulates. Genetic memory influences how much energy is mobilized, how long attention remains engaged, and how quickly recovery is allowed. These decisions are made continuously, without pause. The genome applies its memory not as a rule, but as a suggestion. Present conditions can override it, but only when they are clear and sustained. This form of memory allows the body to remain efficient without becoming rigid. It reduces the need to start from nothing in every situation, providing a baseline of expectation. At the same time, it remains open to revision through experience. Genetic memory does not insist, it offers. The body negotiates between what has been learned across generations and what is being experienced now. This negotiation is ongoing and fluid. Memory supports adaptability rather than limiting it. Rest plays a crucial role in allowing this negotiation to remain balanced. When the body is constantly engaged, inherited tendencies may dominate simply because there is no space to reassess them. In rest, the system can soften its reliance on memory and become more responsive to the present. Genetic memory does not disappear, it relaxes. The genome becomes less insistent, allowing current conditions to speak more clearly. Rest restores balance between past and present. Sleep deepens this process further by reducing conscious interference entirely. During sleep, inherited memory and present state integrate without competition. The body recalibrates how much weight to give to past patterns based on current safety. This recalibration happens quietly, without disruption. Genetic memory is neither erased nor reinforced excessively. It is adjusted. Sleep allows memory to become context-sensitive again. As you listen now, the body is in a state that favors this gentle integration. There is no need to react or decide. Genetic memory remains present but unobtrusive, offering guidance without pressure. The body does not need to recall or interpret anything. It simply settles into a balanced relationship between what has been and what is. In this balance, internal tone softens naturally, allowing awareness to drift as the system prepares for deeper rest and sleep. Inheritance is often imagined as something static, passed down unchanged, yet one of the most enduring forms of inheritance is rhythm. The body inherits not only structures and capacities, but patterns of pacing that determine how life is met over time. These rhythms influence how quickly systems engage, how long they sustain effort, and how smoothly they return to rest. They are embedded in the timing of physiological processes rather than invisible traits. The genome carries an internal sense of tempo shaped by countless repetitions across generations. This tempo does not dictate behavior, it shapes flow. Rhythm becomes a silent guide that influences experience without announcing itself. These inherited rhythms operate beneath awareness, shaping daily cycles without requiring attention. The body knows when to rise in alertness and when to soften, when to mobilize and when to withdraw. This knowing is not learned consciously, it is remembered biologically. Even when external schedules disrupt natural pacing, the internal rhythm remains present, waiting for space to reassert itself. The genome does not forget its timing. It adapts around disruption until stability returns. Rhythm persists quietly, offering coherence when conditions allow. Inheritance expresses itself as continuity rather than repetition. Because rhythm is inherited, individuals may experience different natural tempos without error or deficiency. Some bodies move through states quickly, others slowly, each reflecting a lineage of adaptation. These differences are often misinterpreted as personal traits, yet they originate at a deeper regulatory level. The genome does not prefer speed or slowness, it preserves what worked. Rhythm is neutral, carrying no judgment. It simply exists as a baseline pattern that experience can shape but not erase. The body functions best when allowed to honor its own tempo. This inherited timing also affects how the body experiences transitions. Moving from activity to rest, from engagement to sleep, follows rhythms that are not identical for everyone. Some systems require gradual descent, others settle quickly. Genetics influences how much transition is needed for coherence. When transitions align with inherited rhythm, they feel smooth and natural. When they oppose it, they may feel abrupt or effortful. Understanding rhythm reduces the impulse to force change. The body prefers alignment over control. Sleep is where inherited rhythm reveals itself most clearly. In the absence of external demands, the body returns to its own pacing. Systems coordinate according to genetic timing, allowing recovery to unfold naturally. The genome uses this time to reinforce coherence across processes. Rhythm synchronizes without instruction. Sleep becomes a space where inherited tempo can express itself fully. Rest honors rhythm by removing interference. Over time, repeated respect for rhythm strengthens integration. The body learns that it can rely on its own pacing without consequence. This trust reduces internal conflict and supports stability. Genetics does not demand obedience, it responds to cooperation. When rhythm is honored, regulation becomes effortless. The genome works quietly in the background, supporting balance rather than demanding attention. As you listen now, the body is settling into its inherited rhythm once again. There is no requirement to move faster or slower. Genetic timing reasserts itself gently when pressure fades. Systems align naturally, following their own pace toward rest. This alignment does not need awareness or intention. Rhythm carries the body forward softly, allowing awareness to loosen as the system prepares for deeper calm and sleep, guided by a tempo that has been carried patiently across generations. The body carries a past that the mind has never lived, a deep biological history written not in images or stories, but in regulation and response. Genetic memory is not recollection. It is inheritance expressed as preparedness. Long before conscious experience begins, the genome already contains traces of environments, pressures, and rhythms that shaped survival across generations. These traces do not appear as specific memories, but as tendencies in how the body reacts, recovers, and maintains balance. The past is not remembered as an event. It is present as a posture toward the world. Genetic memory allows the body to arrive already oriented, already informed by what came before. History lives quietly in the present moment. This deep past influences how the body interprets safety and threat without conscious input. Certain patterns of stimulation may feel familiar or tolerable, while others may feel subtly demanding, even without obvious reason. The genome does not evaluate these patterns logically. It responds based on inherited regulation. This response is not fear or preference, but calibration. The body adjusts tone, energy, and timing according to what has historically supported stability. Genetic memory shapes interpretation before thought can intervene. Experience is filtered through layers of biological history that operate silently. Unlike psychological memory, genetic memory does not fix the body in the past. It offers guidance without insisting on repetition. The genome holds possibilities shaped by prior conditions, but it does not require them to unfold again. When present conditions differ, expression can shift accordingly. Genetic memory is therefore adaptive rather than nostalgic. It does not seek to recreate the past. It seeks to remain viable in the present. The body carries history lightly, using it as reference rather than rule. This allows continuity without rigidity. These inherited tendencies often reveal themselves most clearly during rest, when external demands are minimal. In stillness, the body's baseline regulation emerges without interference. Patterns of breath, heart rate, and recovery reflect deep biological pacing rather than immediate circumstance. The genome expresses its memory through rhythm rather than action. Rest allows these rhythms to surface gently. Sleep, in particular, becomes a window into the body's deeper timing. The past speaks most clearly when nothing interrupts. Genetic memory also contributes to resilience by preventing the body from starting from nothing in every situation. It reduces the cost of adaptation by offering pre-existing pathways that can be refined rather than created anew. This efficiency conserves energy and supports stability across changing environments. The body does not need to invent responses constantly. It adjusts inherited ones. Genetic memory acts as a scaffold rather than a script. It supports flexibility by providing structure without confinement. Importantly, Genetic memory is distributed across systems rather than centralized. Different tissues carry different histories, reflecting what they have encountered most often across generations. This distribution allows nuanced response rather than uniform reaction. The body does not respond as a single unit to every condition. It modulates locally and globally as needed. Genetic memory supports this layered regulation. History informs response at multiple levels simultaneously. Integration emerges from this complexity rather than being imposed. As you listen now, the body is resting in a state where genetic memory does not need to assert itself strongly. There is no demand to prepare for unfamiliar conditions. The genome relaxes into its most conservative expression, holding history quietly in reserve. The deep past remains present without influence. This allows the system to feel grounded without being burdened. In this calm state, awareness softens naturally, supported by a body that carries its history gently as it moves toward deeper rest and sleep. Beneath conscious awareness, the body continuously responds to signals that originate far deeper than personal experience. These signals are not memories of events, but inherited sensitivities shaped by ancestral conditions. The genome carries information about what kinds of environments were stable, what kinds demanded caution, and what rhythms allowed recovery. This information is not stored as detail, but as subtle inclinations towards certain regulatory states. The body does not know why it responds as it does. It simply responds. Ancestral signals operate quietly, shaping tone rather than thought. Awareness arrives after regulation has already begun. These inherited signals influence baseline nervous system activity, subtly adjusting thresholds for activation and rest. Some bodies settle quickly into calm, while others maintain a low level of readiness, even in stillness. These differences are not failures of relaxation. They are expressions of deep regulatory history. The genome prepares the body based on what has been reliable across generations. This preparation does not assume danger, it assumes continuity. Ancestral signals are conservative, favoring what sustained life most consistently. They guide regulation toward familiarity rather than novelty. Importantly, these signals do not dominate experience unless conditions resemble those that shape them. When present environments are stable and non-threatening, ancestral sensitivities remain quiet. They do not push themselves forward. The genome does not insist on readiness when it is unnecessary. It waits for confirmation. This waiting allows the body to remain responsive rather than reactive. Ancestral signals are context-dependent, activating only when relevant. The past speaks softly, not constantly. Because these influences operate below awareness, they are often mistaken for personality or temperament, yet they are neither fixed traits nor conscious preferences. They are regulatory tendencies that can soften or strengthen depending on current conditions. When the body experiences sustained safety, these inherited signals relax. The genome updates its assumptions gradually. History does not disappear, but it becomes less influential. Present conditions gain more weight when they remain consistent. Rest is one of the primary contexts where ancestral signals recalibrate. During rest, the body is no longer required to respond to immediate demands. This creates space for inherited regulation to adjust without pressure. If safety persists, ancestral readiness diminishes. The genome interprets calm as reliable information. Over time, This allows baseline tone to soften. Rest communicates to the body that vigilance is no longer necessary. Ancestral signals listen carefully during stillness. Sleep deepens this recalibration further by removing conscious interference entirely. Without thought or intention, the body reassesses how much readiness is required. Genetic memory integrates past and present without conflict. Ancestral signals that once supported survival step back when they are no longer needed. This stepping back is gentle and gradual. Sleep allows history to release its grip without being erased. The body becomes more aligned with current conditions. As you listen now, the body is receiving signals of steadiness and predictability. There is no unfamiliar demand, no need to prepare for change. Ancestral signals remain quiet, observing without acting. The genome holds history in reserve while prioritizing present calm. This balance allows the system to feel grounded without tension. Awareness softens naturally as inherited readiness relaxes and the body settles more deeply into rest, supported by both its past and its present, moving together towards sleep. The body carries experiences it has never consciously lived, holding traces of conditions that shaped generations before awareness ever formed. These traces do not appear as images, emotions, or thoughts. They exist as readiness, tolerance, and pacing embedded in regulation. The genome does not differentiate between lived and inherited experience when shaping response. What matters is reliability across time. Patterns that repeated often enough to matter were integrated into how the body organizes itself. The body arrives already informed, already calibrated to a world it has not yet encountered. This inherited preparation is quiet, efficient, and deeply adaptive. This unlived experience influences how the body meets challenge and ease. Some conditions feel immediately manageable, while others require more adjustment, even when they are unfamiliar. The body responds not because it recognizes something consciously, but because its regulatory systems resonate with inherited patterns. This resonance does not guarantee accuracy in every situation. It provides a starting tone. The genome offers a baseline from which experience can adjust. The body does not assume, it prepares. This preparation reflects history without repeating it exactly. Importantly, these inherited tendencies are not rigid scripts. They are flexible frameworks designed to be updated by present conditions. The body does not blindly reenact the past, it negotiates with it. When current environments differ significantly, epigenetic regulation gradually revises inherited assumptions. This revision requires consistency, not force. The genome waits for evidence before shifting its baseline. Unlived experience informs response until lived experience proves otherwise. Adaptation unfolds patiently. These deep patterns often become most noticeable during quiet states, when external input fades. In stillness, the body's default regulation emerges without distraction. Subtle tendencies in breath, posture, and internal tone reveal inherited pacing. This is not regression, it is expression. Rest allows the body to show how it organizes itself when nothing is required. Sleep amplifies this effect by removing conscious modulation entirely. The body returns to its deepest baseline when left undisturbed. Because these patterns are subtle, they are often overlooked or misunderstood. They do not announce themselves as memory or instinct. They simply shape comfort, tolerance, and ease. The body may feel grounded or restless without obvious cause. These feelings do not need explanation to be valid. They reflect layers of regulation that operate beyond awareness. Understanding this reduces the impulse to analyze or correct what is simply inherited tone. The body does not need fixing, it needs context. Over time, consistent calm allows these inherited patterns to soften if they are no longer necessary. The genome does not insist on maintaining readiness when evidence suggests otherwise. Unlived experience relaxes its influence when lived experience remains stable. This is how the body updates itself across generations, and within a lifetime, history becomes background rather than foreground. The body carries its past without being driven by it. Regulation becomes more present-focused. As you listen now, the body is in a state where inherited experience does not need to guide response. There is no demand to prepare, no unfamiliar pressure to assess. The genome holds its history quietly, allowing present calm to take precedence. Unlived experience remains present but unobtrusive. This balance supports deeper rest, as awareness no longer needs to monitor internal tone. The body settles into stillness with its full history intact yet at ease, moving gently towards sleep. There comes a point where genetic memory no longer needs to actively shape the body's present responses, not because it has been erased, but because it has been fully integrated. The genome does not forget the past, it simply no longer needs to prioritize it. When present conditions remain consistently calm and predictable, inherited regulatory patterns relax their influence. The body recognizes that what once required readiness no longer does. This recognition does not happen consciously, it emerges through repeated confirmation. The past releases its hold not through effort, but through irrelevance. Genetic memory steps back when it is no longer needed to maintain stability. This release is gradual and almost imperceptible, because the body avoids abrupt shifts that could create imbalance. Inherited tendencies soften little by little, allowing present experience to shape regulation more directly. The genome does not resist this transition. It welcomes it when evidence supports safety. Patterns that once guided response become background structure rather than active influence. The body remains informed by history without being governed by it. Integration replaces repetition. The past becomes context, not command. As genetic memory loosens its grip, the body experiences a subtle sense of lightness. Regulation requires less energy, and internal tone becomes smoother. Systems no longer need to prepare for conditions that are not occurring. This reduction in preparatory activity frees resources for maintenance and restoration. The body does not lose resilience, it gains efficiency. Releasing inherited readiness does not make the system fragile. It makes it appropriate to the present. Adaptation becomes precise rather than generalized. Rest is the primary condition under which this release occurs. During rest, the body is no longer gathering new information that demands immediate response. This creates a stable window where inherited patterns can be reassessed. The genome listens closely during stillness, evaluating whether past assumptions still apply. When calm persists, genetic memory updates itself quietly. The body learns that it no longer needs to lean on older patterns. Rest becomes a signal of relevance, not inactivity. Sleep deepens this release by allowing regulation to unfold without interruption. In sleep, there is no conscious reinforcement of old responses. The body is free to recalibrate entirely at the level of chemistry and timing. Genetic memory and present conditions align naturally. What remains useful stays available. What is no longer needed fades into dormancy. This process is not dramatic or emotional. It is practical and precise. The genome optimizes without sentiment. Importantly, the release of genetic memory does not mean disconnection from lineage or loss of depth. History remains embedded as potential, ready to return if conditions change again. The body does not discard its past, it stores it efficiently. This storage allows flexibility without amnesia. The genome remains capable of reactivating inherited patterns when necessary. Releasing the hold of the past does not mean abandoning it. It means trusting the present. As you listen now, the body is in a state that supports this gentle release. There is no pressure to prepare, no unfamiliar demand to interpret. Genetic memory remains present but inactive, observing without directing. The genome prioritizes current calm over historical readiness. This allows regulation to settle fully into the present moment. Awareness can soften without concern, knowing that the body is aligned with now rather than then. In this alignment, rest deepens naturally, and sleep approaches as a continuation of the same quiet integration. Variation is often misunderstood as deviation, yet in genetics, it is the primary source of resilience rather than error. The genome does not aim for uniformity. It preserves difference as a way of remaining adaptable across changing conditions. Small variations in expression, timing, and sensitivity allow the body to respond flexibly without redesigning itself entirely. These differences are not always visible, nor do they always produce immediate effects. They exist quietly, expanding the range of possible responses available to the system. Variation ensures that no single pattern dominates absolutely. Life remains open rather than fixed. At the genetic level, variation does not mean randomness. It emerges through subtle differences in regulation, expression intensity, and responsiveness to signals. Two bodies may carry similar genetic instructions, yet express them at different thresholds or speeds. These differences shape how systems adapt without altering core structure. Variation operates within limits, preserving coherence while allowing diversity. The genome balances consistency with flexibility. Stability is maintained not by sameness, but by a controlled range of difference. This controlled variation allows populations and individuals alike to navigate uncertainty. When conditions shift, some variations prove more suitable than others, supporting continuity without requiring foresight. The genome does not predict change. It prepares for it indirectly by maintaining diversity. This preparation is passive rather than strategic. Variation exists whether or not change occurs. When change arrives, life responds using what is already present. Adaptation becomes selection rather than invention. Within a single body, variation allows systems to specialize without losing integration. Cells express genetic information differently depending on their role, environment, and timing. This specialization is a form of variation that supports efficiency. The genome does not treat all cells identically because doing so would limit function. Variation creates differentiation, and differentiation supports complexity. The body remains unified, not by uniform expression, but by coordinated difference. Diversity becomes the mechanism of order. Variation also protects against fragility. When regulation relies too heavily on a single pattern, disruption can cascade quickly. By maintaining multiple pathways and response options, the genome reduces dependence on any one solution. This redundancy is not wasteful, it is protective. Variation allows compensation when one pathway is less effective. The body adapts smoothly rather than collapsing. Genetic diversity at the level of regulation ensures continuity under stress. Rest plays a subtle role in preserving variation by preventing overcommitment to any one pattern. During rest, expression softens, allowing multiple regulatory options to remain viable. The genome does not reinforce a single response excessively when demand is low. This restraint keeps variation available rather than narrowing possibilities. Sleep supports this by reducing selective pressure temporarily. Variation is maintained through periods of quiet. Stillness preserves diversity. As you listen now, the body is not being asked to adapt to anything new. Variation remains present but unused, held gently in reserve. The genome does not need to select or prioritize strongly. This allows the system to remain open and balanced. Diversity within regulation stays intact without effort. In this state, the body rests not by becoming rigid, but by remaining flexible. Awareness can soften, knowing that the system carries many quiet options, ready when needed, as rest deepens naturally towards sleep. Adaptation in the body does not require awareness, intention, or understanding. It unfolds quietly through countless small adjustments that accumulate over time. The genome does not wait for conscious permission to respond. It adjusts expression continuously based on what the body encounters most often. These adjustments are subtle, often unnoticed, yet they shape how the system functions day after day. Adaptation is not experienced as change, but as normalization. What was once new becomes ordinary. The body settles into what works without announcing the transition. This process depends on feedback rather than foresight. The genome does not anticipate future needs. It responds to present conditions that persist long enough to matter. When a particular pattern of demand repeats, regulation shifts slightly to support it more efficiently. This shift does not alter structure dramatically, it refines usage. Adaptation favors efficiency over transformation. The body conserves energy by improving what already exists rather than creating something new. Change remains incremental and quiet. Because adaptation operates below awareness, it avoids conflict with conscious preferences. The body does not argue with itself about whether to change, it simply adjusts. This prevents resistance and reduces strain. Adaptation becomes cooperative rather than forced. The genome does not impose change suddenly. It allows it to emerge gradually. Regulation shifts only when evidence accumulates. This patience protects coherence across systems. The body changes without disruption. Variation provides the raw material for this adaptation. Without diversity in expression and responsiveness, adjustment would be limited. The genome maintains multiple possible pathways so that adaptation can occur through selection rather than invention. When conditions favor a particular pattern, that pattern becomes more prominent. Others remain available, not eliminated. Adaptation narrows focus temporarily without closing options permanently. Flexibility remains intact, even as efficiency increases. Importantly, Adaptation does not lock the body into a single way of functioning. When conditions change again, regulation can shift back or reconfigure. The genome remains responsive rather than committed. This reversibility ensures that adaptation supports survival rather than restricting it. The body does not cling to what once worked if it no longer does. Adaptation is provisional by design. Stability emerges from responsiveness, not permanence. Rest influences adaptation by signaling when efficiency is no longer required. During rest, the body reduces emphasis on performance-oriented patterns. This allows regulation to soften and reassess. Adaptations that were useful under demand may relax when demand fades. The genome interprets rest as information. It does not reinforce adaptation unnecessarily. This prevents over-specialization and preserves balance. Rest keeps adaptation from becoming rigidity. Sleep extends this recalibration by removing conscious interference entirely. In sleep, the body integrates adaptive changes without pressure. Regulation smooths out excess emphasis and restores proportionality. The genome does not undo adaptation, it refines it. Sleep allows efficiency to coexist with flexibility. Adaptation becomes balanced rather than extreme. The system remains capable without being tense. As you listen now, the body is not adapting to anything new. There is no demand requiring adjustment. The genome remains in a receptive state, maintaining variation without selecting strongly. Adaptation pauses naturally when it is not needed. This pause is not stagnation, it is preservation. The body rests in readiness without movement. In this state, awareness can soften fully, supported by a system that knows how to adapt when necessary and how to rest when it is not, allowing sleep to approach without effort. Diversity within genetic expression functions as a form of biological insurance, protecting the body from uncertainty without requiring prediction. The genome does not assume that one solution will always be sufficient, so it preserves multiple ways of responding to similar conditions. These alternatives may remain unused for long periods, existing quietly in the background. Their value lies not in constant expression, but in availability. When conditions shift unexpectedly, diversity allows the system to adjust without collapse. The body remains resilient because it is not dependent on a single pathway. Stability emerges from having options rather than certainty. This diversity exists not only between individuals, but within a single organism across time and context. Cells can express the same genetic information differently depending on their role, environment, and history. This internal diversity allows specialization without fragmentation. The genome supports complexity by permitting variation in function while maintaining overall coherence. Each system contributes differently, yet remains integrated. Diversity becomes the mechanism through which unity is sustained. The body works as a coordinated whole precisely because its parts are not identical. Genetic diversity also buffers against error and fatigue. When one pathway becomes less efficient due to stress or depletion, others can compensate. This redundancy prevents minor disruptions from escalating into systemic imbalance. The body does not need to detect failure consciously. Regulation shifts automatically. Diversity ensures continuity by distributing responsibility across multiple options. No single mechanism carries the entire burden. The genome designs resilience through shared load rather than centralized control. Importantly, diversity is maintained even when it is not immediately useful. The genome does not discard unused options simply because they are quiet. Silence does not imply irrelevance. Many variations exist precisely so they can remain inactive until conditions require them. This patience preserves long-term adaptability. The body does not optimize itself into rigidity. It keeps room for what has not yet been needed. Diversity is preserved through restraint. Periods of low demand are essential for maintaining this diversity. When the body is constantly pushed toward performance, regulation may narrow temporarily, emphasizing efficiency over breadth. Rest allows this narrowing to reverse. During rest, expression relaxes, and multiple pathways regain balance. The genome interprets stillness as permission to maintain options rather than select among them. Diversity flourishes when pressure is absent. Quiet preserves possibility. Sleep plays a particularly important role in protecting diversity. In sleep, there is no immediate requirement to choose or prioritize. The body is free to restore proportionality across systems. Genetic expression equalizes gently, preventing overemphasis on any one pathway. This nightly reset ensures that diversity remains intact over time. Sleep prevents adaptation from becoming specialization too quickly. It keeps the system open and resilient. As you listen now, the body is in a state where diversity does not need to be expressed actively. Options remain present without being used. The genome does not narrow its focus because nothing demands it. This allows the system to rest in openness rather than tension. Resilience remains quietly available. In this state, awareness can soften completely, supported by a body that does not need to choose, adapt, or respond, but can simply remain whole as rest deepens naturally towards sleep. Stability in biological systems does not arise from uniformity, but from the careful coordination of differences that are allowed to coexist without conflict. The genome does not seek to make every system behave the same way. It allows variation so that balance can be maintained across changing conditions. Each pathway contributes something slightly different, and together they form a resilient whole. Stability emerges not because change is prevented, but because change is distributed. The body remains steady by never relying on a single pattern too heavily. Difference becomes the quiet foundation of order. This principle operates continuously within the body, even when nothing appears to be happening. Genetic regulation maintains a range of expression levels, sensitivities, and response times across systems. These differences prevent synchronization from becoming rigidity. If every process followed the same rhythm and intensity, small disruptions could spread quickly. Variation slows propagation, allowing local adjustment without global disturbance. The genome designs stability through diversity of response. Balance is maintained by allowing systems to differ just enough. Over time, this distributed stability supports long-term coherence. When conditions fluctuate, some pathways respond more strongly, while others remain steady, absorbing change without amplifying it. The body does not need to suppress variation to remain organized. It needs to coordinate it. Genetic regulation acts as a conductor rather than a controller. Each system plays its part without overpowering the whole. Stability is an emergent property rather than a fixed state. It arises naturally from interaction. Importantly, this form of stability is flexible rather than brittle. It allows the body to remain functional even when some elements are stressed or compromised. Diversity provides alternatives that can step forward when needed. The genome does not panic when one pathway falters, others compensate quietly. This redundancy is not inefficiency, it is protection. Stability persists because responsibility is shared. The body remains whole by distributing risk. Rest supports this form of stability by reducing the need for precise coordination under pressure. When demand decreases, expression levels soften, allowing differences to rebalance. The genome does not enforce uniformity during rest. It allows diversity to settle naturally. This settling restores proportionality across systems. No pathway dominates, and none is suppressed unnecessarily. Rest maintains stability by allowing difference to coexist without competition. Sleep deepens this process further by removing external timing and conscious modulation. In sleep, genetic regulation equalizes gently, preventing long-term drift toward imbalance. Systems recalibrate their relative contributions without instruction. The genome uses this time to reinforce distributed stability. Sleep does not impose order, it reveals it. Balance returns through stillness rather than effort. As you listen now, the body is resting in this state of distributed stability. Nothing needs to be aligned or corrected. Differences remain present but unchallenged. The genome holds coherence without tightening control. This allows the system to feel steady without tension. Awareness can soften fully, knowing that stability does not require vigilance. In this quiet coordination of differences, the body settles naturally, supported by its own design, as rest deepens and sleep continues to approach without interruption. Genetic systems are not designed primarily for change, but for preservation. At the core of genomic activity lies an ongoing commitment to repair, ensuring that information remains coherent across time. Every day, DNA encounters small disruptions caused by ordinary metabolic processes, environmental exposure, and cellular activity. These disruptions are not exceptional, they are expected. The genome anticipates imperfection and prepares for it continuously. Repair is therefore not a response to failure, but a baseline function of life. The body survives not by avoiding damage, but by correcting it quietly and efficiently. This repair work occurs constantly, even when the body appears still. Specialized molecular mechanisms scan genetic material for inconsistencies, breaks, or errors, correcting them before they can accumulate. These processes operate below awareness, without sensation or signal. The body does not wait for problems to announce themselves, it addresses them preemptively. Repair systems are conservative and precise, intervening only where necessary. This restraint prevents unnecessary alteration while preserving integrity. Stability is maintained through vigilance without alarm. Importantly, genetic repair prioritizes coherence over perfection. The goal is not to restore an idealized state, but to maintain functional continuity. Minor variations may persist if they do not disrupt overall regulation. The genome distinguishes between errors that threaten stability and differences that can be tolerated. Repair focuses on what matters most. This selectivity conserves energy and avoids overcorrection. The body remains flexible because it does not insist on uniformity. Repair supports function rather than enforcing sameness. The efficiency of repair depends heavily on the body's overall state. When systems are under constant demand, resources are directed toward immediate function rather than maintenance. Repair continues, but at a reduced pace. When demand decreases, repair becomes more thorough. Rest signals that resources can be reallocated. The genome responds by deepening its maintenance efforts. Repair accelerates not through urgency, but through availability. The body repairs best when it is allowed to pause. Sleep provides the most favorable conditions for this process. During sleep, external demands are minimal, and internal regulation shifts toward restoration. Genetic repair mechanisms become more active and coordinated. The body uses this time to address accumulated micro-disruptions without interference. Sleep does not create repair. It allows it to proceed without competition. This is why rest feels restorative, even without conscious awareness. Repair happens quietly, beneath experience. Because repair is continuous, it does not require attention or management. The body does not need to be instructed to maintain itself. Genetic systems evolve to prioritize integrity automatically. This autonomy allows awareness to disengage without consequence. The body remains reliable even when the mind rests. Repair continues whether or not it is noticed. This reliability supports trust in the system's capacity to care for itself. As you listen now, the body is in a state that favors this quiet genetic maintenance. There is no urgency, no demand that competes with repair. The genome continues its work steadily, correcting small inconsistencies and preserving coherence. Nothing needs to be felt or understood for this to occur. Repair unfolds naturally in stillness. This allows awareness to soften further, knowing that the body remains cared for at its deepest level as rest deepens and sleep approaches effortlessly. Replication is one of the most disciplined processes in biology, not because it aims for perfection, but because continuity depends on accuracy within tolerance. Each time a cell divides, genetic information must be copied so that function can continue without disruption. This copying is not rushed, even when conditions demand speed. The genome follows a structured sequence of checks and balances, ensuring that information remains coherent as it is passed forward. Errors are anticipated, not feared. Systems exist to detect, pause, and correct before continuation. Replication proceeds with patience because stability depends on precision. This discipline is built into the process itself, rather than imposed from outside. Enzymatic systems move along DNA methodically, copying segments while monitoring consistency. When irregularities appear, replication slows or stops until resolution is achieved. This pause is not failure, it is design. The genome values integrity over speed. Replication does not compete with other processes for dominance. It coordinates with them. Timing is adjusted to maintain coherence across the system. Accuracy is protected through restraint. Importantly, replication tolerates small variations when they do not compromise overall function. The genome does not aim for absolute sameness because diversity supports adaptability. Instead, replication ensures that core instructions remain stable while allowing minor differences to persist. This balance preserves identity without eliminating flexibility. Continuity is maintained not by freezing information, but by allowing controlled variation. Replication supports life by carrying forward what works while leaving room for adaptation. Accuracy and diversity coexist without conflict. The body modulates replication intensity based on context. During periods of growth or repair, replication becomes more active. During rest, replication slows to essential maintenance. This modulation conserves energy and prevents unnecessary duplication. The genome does not replicate simply because it can. It does so when conditions support it. Rest informs replication as clearly as demand does. The body communicates when copying is needed and when restraint is appropriate. Replication follows state rather than impulse. Sleep provides an optimal environment for this regulated replication to occur. With external demands reduced, replication can proceed without interruption. The body uses this time to complete copying tasks that were deferred during activity. Coordination improves because fewer systems compete for resources. Sleep does not force replication. It removes obstacles. This allows the genome to maintain continuity quietly. Replication becomes smoother and more precise in stillness. Because replication is autonomous, it does not require conscious oversight. The body does not need to be watched to function reliably. Genetic systems evolved to manage continuity independently of awareness. This autonomy allows the mind to disengage fully without risk. Replication continues whether or not it is noticed. The body remains trustworthy even in unconscious states. This reliability supports deep rest. As you listen now, the body is in a state that supports disciplined genetic continuity. Replication proceeds at a pace appropriate to rest, maintaining accuracy without urgency. Nothing needs to be directed or corrected. The genome carries information forward quietly, preserving coherence across time. Awareness can soften completely, knowing that the body's deepest processes remain precise and steady, allowing rest to deepen naturally as sleep unfolds without interruption. When the body enters prolonged rest, genetic activity does not stop. It becomes more selective, more coordinated, and more efficient. Nighttime is not a pause in biological work, but a shift in priorities. External demands fade, and internal maintenance takes precedence. The genome responds to this shift immediately, redirecting resources toward processes that require stability and uninterrupted time. Repair, recalibration, and fine regulation move to the foreground. This work is quiet because it does not need urgency. The body understands that night offers continuity without interference. During these hours, genetic systems operate with fewer competing signals. Stress-related pathways soften, and expression associated with vigilance decreases. This creates a chemical environment that supports precision rather than speed. The genome takes advantage of this clarity to perform tasks that would be inefficient during activity. Small inconsistencies are corrected, regulatory balances are adjusted, and informational coherence is reinforced. Nothing dramatic happens, yet much is accomplished. Night allows the genome to work without distraction. This nocturnal genetic activity follows inherited rhythms that align with darkness and stillness. Over evolutionary time, organisms that coordinated maintenance with rest conserved energy more effectively. These rhythms are preserved within the genome, guiding when certain processes are favored. Night becomes a biological signal rather than a cultural construct. The body recognizes reduced stimulation as permission to turn inward. Genetic systems respond by deepening their focus on preservation. Timing aligns naturally with rest. Importantly, this work does not require deep sleep to begin. Even quiet wakefulness with minimal stimulation supports a shift toward maintenance. As awareness softens, the genome adjusts its priorities gradually. There is no threshold that must be crossed. Genetic activity responds continuously to decreasing demand. The quieter the environment, the more refined the work becomes. Stillness itself communicates readiness. The genome listens carefully to silence. Nighttime genetic regulation also supports integration across systems. During activity, processes operate in parallel, but with limited coordination. At night, synchronization improves. Repair, replication, and regulatory recalibration align more smoothly. This coordination reduces internal friction and supports overall coherence. The body becomes more unified at the molecular level. Night fosters integration by removing competition. Genetic systems work together rather than alongside each other. Because this work is autonomous, it does not generate sensation or awareness. The body does not signal when repair is complete or recalibration has occurred. These processes unfold beneath experience, unnoticed but effective. This invisibility is intentional. The genome does not seek acknowledgement. It functions reliably without attention. Night allows this reliability to express itself fully. As you listen now, the body is already engaging in this quiet genetic work. External demands are low, and internal conditions favor maintenance. The genome shifts naturally toward its nighttime priorities without effort. Nothing needs to be encouraged or controlled. This work continues whether or not sleep has fully arrived. Awareness can soften safely, knowing that the body's deepest systems are active in their most careful and coordinated mode, supporting rest as it deepens naturally into sleep. At its deepest level, genetic preservation does not rely on vigilance, urgency, or control. It unfolds as a background process that continues regardless of awareness, intention, or attention. The genome is not waiting for instruction to maintain itself. It is already organized around continuity. This organization allows preservation to occur without effort, without strain, and without interruption. The body does not need to hold itself together consciously. Genetic systems evolve to sustain coherence automatically. Preservation is not an action the body takes. It is the state it naturally returns to when disturbance fades. This effortless preservation depends on layers of redundancy and regulation working quietly together. Multiple systems overlap in function, ensuring that no single failure compromises stability. When one mechanism slows or pauses, others continue seamlessly. This overlapping design prevents collapse and reduces the need for rapid correction. The genome does not panic when variation appears, it absorbs it calmly. Preservation emerges from cooperation rather than control. Stability is maintained through distribution, not dominance. During periods of rest, this effortless quality becomes more apparent. With external demands removed, the body no longer needs to prioritize immediate function. Genetic systems settle into their most economical mode, maintaining integrity with minimal output. Repair, replication, and regulation continue at a pace that conserves energy. Nothing is rushed, and nothing is forced. The genome does not strive, it maintains. Preservation becomes quieter as demand decreases. Stillness reveals how little effort is actually required. Sleep enhances this process by removing even subtle forms of interference. In sleep, there is no conscious modulation of posture, breath, or internal tone. The body is free to return fully to its baseline organization. Genetic preservation operates without negotiation. Systems align naturally, because nothing competes for priority. Sleep does not add anything to preservation, it removes obstacles. This removal allows continuity to express itself fully. Importantly, effortless preservation does not imply passivity. The genome remains active, scanning, correcting, and coordinating continuously. Its activity is simply proportional to need rather than driven by urgency. This proportionality prevents exhaustion and supports longevity. The body preserves itself by doing only what is necessary. Excess effort would create instability rather than prevent it. Preservation succeeds because it is restrained. This design allows the body to remain reliable even when awareness disengages completely. There is no requirement to monitor, manage, or supervise genetic activity. The system functions precisely because it does not depend on consciousness. This autonomy supports deep rest by removing responsibility from awareness. The body knows how to care for itself. Genetic preservation continues whether or not it is acknowledged. Trust becomes possible because reliability is built in. As you listen now, the body is resting in this state of effortless preservation. Nothing needs to be adjusted or improved. Genetic systems continue their quiet work without demand. Awareness is free to soften, drift, or disappear entirely. The body remains intact and coherent regardless. In this ease, preservation unfolds naturally, supporting a deepening sense of rest as sleep approaches not as an event, but as a continuation of this same quiet, stable, and effortless state. The genome is often imagined as a static archive, yet in reality, it behaves as a living process, continuously responding to the state of the body it inhabits. It does not exist as a fixed object waiting to be consulted. It exists as an active system of relationships unfolding over time. Every moment, genetic information is being interpreted, restrained, or expressed in response to internal conditions. The genome does not act alone, and it does not remain unchanged by context. It moves with the body rather than directing it from a distance. Life does not follow the genome. The genome participates in life. This participation is subtle, constant, and adaptive. As a living process, the genome is inseparable from regulation. It does not merely store instructions, it negotiates their relevance continuously. Signals from metabolism, nervous system activity, hormonal balance, and environmental input all converge to shape how genetic information is used. The genome weighs these signals without awareness, choosing proportion rather than dominance. Expression rises and falls gently, matching need without excess. This ongoing negotiation prevents rigidity and supports coherence. Genetics functions less like a command center and more like a responsive network. This responsiveness allows the genome to remain aligned with the body's present reality. When conditions shift, expression adjusts without needing to rewrite information. The genome does not cling to previous states out of habit or memory. It remains present-focused, updating itself continuously. This quality allows life to persist through change without losing identity. The genome carries continuity forward by adapting its expression rather than its content. Stability is preserved through motion rather than stillness. Importantly, this living quality means that genetics is never finished. There is no final state of expression, no completed configuration that must be maintained indefinitely. The genome remains open-ended, capable of responding to new conditions as long as life continues. This openness prevents stagnation and supports resilience. The body is not locked into a predetermined future by its genes. Genetics remains in dialogue with experience until the very end. Life stays negotiable. Rest reveals this living process more clearly by slowing external interference. In stillness, genetic regulation becomes easier to observe conceptually because it simplifies. Expression quiets, not because the genome stops working, but because less adjustment is required. The living process continues, but with fewer demands. Maintenance replaces adaptation. The genome settles into its most conservative mode while remaining responsive. Rest shows how much of genetics is about alignment rather than action. Sleep deepens this alignment by removing conscious modulation entirely. In sleep, the genome interacts only with internal signals, free from external complexity. This allows expression to stabilize without pressure. The living process continues quietly, maintaining coherence without striving. The body does not need to guide this process. It unfolds naturally. Sleep supports the genome not by directing it, but by stepping out of the way. The living process works best when undisturbed. As you listen now, the body is resting within this ongoing genetic dialogue. Nothing needs to be decided, adjusted, or understood. The genome continues its living work, responding softly to the body's calm state. Awareness can loosen without concern, knowing that genetics is not a rigid script, but a responsive process that remains aligned with rest. In this alignment, the system settles further, allowing sleep to emerge naturally as the living process continues quietly on its own. Genetic expression is never a single decision made once and followed forever. It is an ongoing negotiation that unfolds continuously within the body. At every moment, countless signals inform the genome about what is required and what can remain quiet. These signals do not compete aggressively. They blend, overlap, and balance one another. The genome listens to the whole rather than responding to any single voice. Expression emerges from agreement rather than command. This negotiation allows the body to remain coherent even as conditions change. Genetics adapts by adjusting emphasis, not by rewriting identity. This process of negotiation prevents extremes. No pathway is allowed to dominate indefinitely without confirmation that it remains necessary. When one signal grows louder, others temper it. This balance ensures proportional response rather than escalation. The genome does not rush toward expression simply because it can. It waits for context to stabilize. Negotiation introduces patience into biology. Expression becomes measured rather than reactive. Because negotiation is continuous, genetic expression can shift smoothly without disruption. There are no abrupt transitions that threaten stability. Changes accumulate gradually, allowing systems to adapt without strain. The body does not experience these shifts as events. It experiences them as normal functioning. What feels like consistency is often the result of constant small adjustments. Genetics maintains steadiness through movement rather than stillness. Negotiation creates continuity. Importantly, this negotiation respects limits. The genome does not express everything that is possible. It expresses what is appropriate. Energy availability, timing, and system-wide coherence all influence what is allowed to proceed. This restraint prevents exhaustion and preserves long-term viability. Expression that would destabilize the system is delayed or reduced. Genetics protects the body by knowing when not to act. Silence becomes as important as activity. Rest alters the tone of this negotiation. When demands recede, signals favor maintenance rather than adaptation. The genome responds by reducing expression that supports readiness or change. Negotiation simplifies. Fewer priorities compete for attention. This simplification allows coherence to deepen naturally. The body does not need to manage this process consciously. Rest communicates clearly without instruction. Sleep refines this negotiation further by removing external input almost entirely. In sleep, genetic expression reflects internal balance alone. The genome negotiates only with the body's own signals, free from environmental complexity. This allows regulation to settle into its most stable configuration. Expression becomes minimal yet precise. Sleep does not stop negotiation, it clarifies it. The genome works with fewer variables. As you listen now, the body is in a state where negotiation is gentle and unhurried. There is no strong signal demanding action or change. The genome responds by quieting expression, maintaining coherence without effort. Nothing needs to be resolved. This ongoing negotiation continues calmly in the background. Awareness can soften completely, supported by a system that knows how to balance itself moment by moment, allowing rest to deepen naturally as sleep approaches. Integration is the point at which genetic expression stops feeling like a collection of separate activities and begins to function as a single, coordinated whole. The genome does not operate in isolation within individual systems. It integrates information across the entire body. Signals from metabolism, immunity, neural activity, and circadian timing converge continuously. The genome evaluates coherence rather than intensity, favoring patterns that support overall balance. Expression is adjusted not to optimize one system at the expense of others, but to maintain harmony across all of them. Integration ensures that no single process pulls the body out of alignment. The whole remains greater than the sum of its parts. This integration unfolds quietly, without central control or hierarchy. There is no command signal that dictates coordination. Instead, regulation emerges through mutual adjustment. Each system responds to the state of the others, creating feedback loops that stabilize function. Genetic expression reflects this interdependence by modulating activity proportionally. When one system increases demand, others adjust to compensate. The genome mediates these adjustments without awareness or intention. Integration is achieved through relationship rather than direction. Because integration is continuous, it prevents fragmentation even during change. As conditions shift, expression adapts across systems simultaneously rather than sequentially. This synchrony reduces internal conflict and preserves efficiency. The body does not lurch from one state to another, it transitions smoothly. Genetic regulation supports this smoothness by coordinating timing and intensity across processes. Integration turns adaptation into flow rather than disruption. Change becomes coherent. Rest strengthens this integrative capacity by reducing competing demands. When activity subsides, systems are free to align without urgency. Genetic expression simplifies, allowing relationships between systems to become clearer. This clarity supports recalibration. The genome does not need to resolve conflicts when there are fewer demands. Integration deepens naturally in stillness. Rest provides the space where coordination can refine itself. Sleep amplifies this effect by removing conscious interference entirely. In sleep, systems are no longer responding to external stimuli or intentional action. Genetic regulation reflects internal coherence alone. This allows deep synchronization across processes. Repair, replication, and regulation align in timing and proportion. The body becomes internally consistent. Sleep does not impose integration, it reveals it. Coordination emerges when nothing competes. Importantly, integration does not eliminate difference between systems. Each retains its specific function and rhythm. Integration allows difference to coexist without friction. The genome preserves specialization while ensuring cooperation. This balance supports complexity without chaos. The body remains adaptable because integration does not collapse diversity into sameness. Order emerges through coordination rather than uniformity. As you listen now, the body is settling into this integrative state. Systems are not competing for attention or resources. Genetic expression quiets to what is essential, supporting harmony rather than adjustment. Nothing needs to be synchronized deliberately. Integration unfolds on its own. Awareness can soften fully, knowing that the body's deepest processes are aligned and cooperative, allowing rest to deepen seamlessly as sleep continues to approach. At a certain depth of regulation, coherence no longer requires oversight, correction, or effort. The genome does not need to be directed toward balance. Balance emerges naturally when interference fades. Genetic expression aligns itself with the body's state through distributed coordination rather than centralized control. No single system dictates order. Instead, coherence arises from countless small adjustments that settle into agreement. The body does not hold itself together consciously. It remains whole because its design favors alignment over dominance. Control becomes unnecessary when relationships are stable. This absence of control does not imply randomness. On the contrary, it reflects a high degree of organization that no longer needs supervision. The genome operates within boundaries shaped by history, environment, and current state. Within those boundaries, expression adjusts freely and proportionally. Nothing forces coherence, it is allowed. Regulation becomes self-sustaining because feedback loops are intact. When systems listen to one another, no authority is required. Order maintains itself. Coherence without control also reduces internal strain. When no system is compelled to lead or suppress others, energy expenditure decreases. The body no longer needs to correct imbalances aggressively. Small deviations resolve themselves through mutual adjustment. Genetic expression reflects this economy by doing less rather than more. The genome does not seek optimal performance at all times. It seeks sufficient balance. This restraint preserves long-term stability. Less effort produces more continuity. Rest reveals this principle clearly. As demands fall away, the body naturally returns to its baseline organization. Genetic regulation simplifies, not because function is lost, but because fewer adjustments are needed. Coherence becomes visible through ease. The genome does not tighten control during rest, it releases it. Systems fall into alignment without instruction. Stillness allows coherence to express itself without resistance. Sleep deepens this process by removing conscious modulation entirely. In sleep, There is no attempt to manage posture, breath, or internal state. The body is free to organize itself according to its own logic. Genetic expression follows internal coherence alone. This allows regulation to reach its most stable configuration. Sleep does not enforce order, it allows it to surface. Coherence persists because nothing interferes. Importantly, coherence without control preserves adaptability. The absence of control does not freeze the system. Feedback remains active, ready to respond if conditions change. The genome stays responsive without being vigilant. This readiness is calm rather than tense. The body remains capable precisely because it is not braced. Stability and flexibility coexist when control is unnecessary. As you listen now, the body is resting in this state of self-sustaining coherence. Nothing needs to be monitored, adjusted, or corrected. Genetic expression remains aligned with calm, maintaining balance without effort. Awareness is free to soften completely, knowing that order does not depend on attention. In this quiet coherence, the system settles fully into rest, and sleep continues not as a transition, but as the natural continuation of this same effortless alignment. At the deepest level, the genome cannot be understood as something that belongs only to a single body. It exists as part of a much larger continuity, extending beyond individual lifetimes and momentary experience. Genetic information flows across generations, carrying patterns that outlast any single form. The body is not the owner of the genome, it is a temporary expression of it. Life passes through the genome rather than originating from it. This perspective shifts attention away from individuality toward continuity. The genome is not confined to one body's story. It participates in a much longer process. This continuity does not erase individuality, but it places it within a broader context. Each body expresses genetic information uniquely, shaped by timing, environment, and experience. Yet beneath these variations lies a shared biological language that connects all living systems. The genome carries instructions refined through countless expressions, none of which stand alone. Each body becomes a moment in an ongoing sequence rather than an isolated event. Individual experience matters, but it does not interrupt continuity. Life continues through variation rather than repetition. Because of this, genetic processes are oriented toward preservation beyond the present moment. Repair, regulation, and integration are not performed solely for immediate benefit. They support continuity across time, ensuring that information remains coherent as it moves forward. The genome does not rush toward outcomes, it sustains process. This long view shapes how regulation unfolds within the body. Short-term demands are balanced against long-term stability. Genetics always considers what can continue, not just what can happen now. This orientation toward continuity explains the genome's restraint. Expression is measured, repair is prioritized, and variation is preserved. These strategies ensure that life remains adaptable across changing conditions. The genome does not optimize for a single environment or moment. It prepares for unknown futures by maintaining flexibility. Continuity is protected through balance rather than specialization. The body reflects this wisdom in how it settles into rest. Stability serves something larger than immediate experience. Rest allows this broader continuity to become more apparent. When attention withdraws from immediate demands, the body feels less separate and more sustained. Genetic processes continue without interruption, reinforcing the sense that life does not depend on constant awareness. The genome works on a timescale far slower than thought. It does not hurry because it is not limited to the present moment. Rest reveals this patience quietly. Sleep deepens this perspective by dissolving boundaries of attention altogether. In sleep, individuality fades temporarily, while biological continuity remains intact. The genome continues its work without reference to self or identity. Repair, integration, and preservation proceed regardless of awareness. Sleep demonstrates that life is carried forward even when experience disappears. The body rests within something larger than itself. As you listen now, the body is settling into this sense of continuity without effort. There is no need to maintain identity, intention, or focus. Genetic processes continue calmly, sustaining coherence beyond awareness. The body does not need to be held together by thought. Life flows through it naturally. In this quiet recognition, awareness softens further, and rest deepens into sleep as a gentle participation in the same ongoing process that has always continued before and beyond this moment. Life, when viewed through the lens of genetics, reveals itself not as a series of separate events, but as a continuous flow of information adapting to circumstance. The genome does not begin or end with any single body. It moves forward through expression, restraint, and renewal. Each moment of life participates in this flow, contributing without interrupting it. The body becomes a vessel rather than a boundary. Genetics is not something the body has, it is something the body expresses. This flow persists regardless of awareness. Life continues, whether it is observed or not. This genetic flow does not move with urgency or direction in the way thought expects. It advances through quiet continuity, maintaining coherence while allowing variation. The genome carries forward what remains viable, adjusting expression gently as conditions shift. Nothing is forced into permanence. Life remains open-ended because the flow adapts rather than resists. Stability arises from this movement rather than from fixation. Genetics preserves life by staying in motion without haste. Within the body, this flow manifests as seamless regulation across systems. Repair, integration, and maintenance occur as part of a unified process rather than isolated tasks. The genome does not distinguish between momentary function and long-term continuity. Both are served simultaneously. This integration allows the body to rest without collapsing and to change without fragmenting. Flow sustains coherence without effort. The body participates naturally. Rest reveals this flow more clearly by removing distractions that fragment attention. When the body is still, genetic processes continue without interruption. This continuity becomes perceptible not as activity, but as steadiness. The sense of being held by something ongoing emerges quietly. The genome does not require constant input to maintain direction. It follows its own rhythm. Rest allows the body to feel carried rather than active. Sleep deepens this experience by dissolving the sense of time and sequence. In sleep, the body no longer tracks before and after. Genetic flow continues without reference to temporal markers. Repair and integration occur in a timeless manner, guided by rhythm rather than clock. Sleep reveals that life does not need narrative to proceed. The genome works within cycles far broader than awareness. Continuity remains intact. This perspective allows the body to release the need to monitor or manage itself. When life is understood as flow rather than event, control becomes unnecessary. The genome does not ask to be directed. It continues to regulate quietly, aligning with current conditions. The body rests more deeply when it trusts this flow. Effort falls away because it is no longer relevant. Life proceeds without interference. As you listen now, the body is immersed in this genetic flow. Nothing needs to be followed or remembered. The genome continues its quiet work, sustaining coherence beyond thought. Awareness can loosen its grip, knowing that life is not dependent on attention. The body rests within an ongoing process that has no urgency and no endpoint. In this flowing continuity, sleep emerges naturally as awareness dissolves gently into the same movement that has always carried life forward. At this depth, the idea of a separate biological identity begins to soften. The genome no longer appears as something that belongs to a single body with clear boundaries. Instead, it reveals itself as a process that passes through form temporarily. The body is not a container of genetics. It is a momentary configuration within a much larger movement. Identity, when viewed this way, becomes functional rather than fixed. Life is not centered on the individual, but expressed through it. Genetics continues whether identity is felt or not. This shift does not remove individuality. It quiets its importance. The body still functions, regulates, and maintains itself, but without needing to define itself as separate or central. Genetic processes do not recognize personal narrative or self-image. They respond only to conditions, signals, and rhythms. As identity loosens, regulation becomes simpler. There is less internal reference, less comparison, less holding. The genome continues its work without needing a name for the body it passes through. When identity softens, effort also diminishes. The body no longer needs to position itself within experience. Genetic regulation becomes almost invisible, not because it stops, but because it no longer contrasts with awareness, process, and presence blend. The genome does not distinguish between me and not me. It simply sustains coherence. This lack of distinction reduces internal tension. The body rests more deeply when it does not need to assert itself. Rest makes this dissolution possible by removing the cues that reinforce identity. In stillness, there is no action to perform and no role to maintain. Genetic processes continue without interruption, demonstrating that life does not require self-definition to persist. The body does not vanish when identity fades. It stabilizes. Regulation becomes more economical. Identity is revealed as optional rather than essential. The genome carries continuity regardless. Sleep completes this softening by suspending identity entirely for a time. In sleep, there is no sense of self-directing or observing, yet genetic maintenance, repair, and integration continue precisely. This demonstrates that identity is not the source of order. Life organizes itself without supervision. Sleep shows that coherence exists independently of awareness. The genome flows uninterrupted through the absence of self. This realization allows the body to release subtle forms of holding that remain even in calm wakefulness. There is nothing left to manage, maintain, or protect at the level of identity. Genetic processes are already sufficient. The body does not need to be held together by thought. Letting identity dissolve does not create emptiness. It reveals support that was always present. Life continues effortlessly. As you listen now, the body is resting in this identity-free state more fully. There is no need to locate yourself within experience. Genetic processes continue quietly, sustaining coherence without reference. Awareness can drift without consequence. Nothing depends on attention. In this gentle dissolution, the body is carried by processes older and broader than identity itself, allowing rest to deepen further as sleep unfolds naturally, without boundary or effort. At the final point of this journey, nothing more is required from the body or the genome. There is no lesson to complete, no understanding to secure, and no state to achieve. Genetic processes are already aligned with continuity, carrying life forward without instruction. The body does not need to hold itself together or remain aware in order for coherence to persist. Regulation continues because it always has. At this depth, rest is not something that happens to the body. It is what the body naturally is when nothing interferes. Life continues without commentary. The genome no longer feels like a system doing work, because work implies effort and direction. What remains is a quiet persistence, a steady unfolding that does not announce itself. Repair, preservation, and integration blend into a single, indistinguishable process. There is no beginning or end to this activity. It simply remains present. The body does not need to participate actively. Genetic continuity does not depend on attention, intention, or identity. It flows on its own. In this state, even the idea of process begins to soften. There is no sense of things happening in sequence. Time loses relevance, replaced by a feeling of sustained stillness. The genome is not moving toward anything. It is maintaining what already exists. This maintenance is not fragile or tense. It is stable because it is distributed and autonomous. Nothing needs to be protected. Life does not require guarding. Sleep, when it arrives, is not a transition but a continuation of this same condition. Awareness fades, yet coherence remains untouched. The body does not fall asleep. It simply stops needing to remain awake. Genetic processes proceed exactly as they did before, unaffected by the absence of observation. This reveals something fundamental. Life is not dependent on consciousness to remain ordered. The genome continues to sustain continuity in silence. At this depth, separation dissolves completely. There is no clear boundary between rest and process, between body and continuity. Everything blends into a single, steady presence. The genome is not inside the body. The body is an expression within the genome's flow. Nothing is held apart. Nothing needs definition. This unity does not feel dramatic or expansive. It feels ordinary and sufficient. Wholeness appears as simplicity. There is no instruction here to let go, because letting go has already occurred. Nothing is being maintained. Nothing is being released. The body rests because it is allowed to rest, not because it has reached a certain state. Genetic continuity does not require permission. It proceeds gently, reliably, without interruption. The system remains whole without effort. Silence is not empty, it is complete. As you remain here, listening or drifting, it no longer matters. The genome continues its quiet work, sustaining life beyond awareness. The body is safe to disappear into sleep because nothing essential depends on staying present. Continuity remains intact. Rest deepens naturally, without event or boundary. And sleep unfolds not as an ending, but as the same calm, uninterrupted process continuing on, quietly, exactly as it always has.